Hi guys, my name's Jack Nagel and I've been in recovery for over 10 years now and completely transformed my life out of addictive patterns. And with Real Drug Talk and our treatment company called Connection Based Living, I've helped hundreds of other people completely change their life as well. Like Haley, who's over 6 years in recovery. You can check her story out on our YouTube channel. And James, who's over 2 years in recovery now, you can also check his story out on our YouTube channel. Because of the mad times that we live in, we have put together a book. It's called The 11 Definitive Steps to Transform Your Life Out of Addictive Patterns Without Having to Go to Rehab. You can find it by scrolling down in the description that I'm pointing at here. If you just scroll down and click that link, it'll take you to the special offer on the book. It's super cheap. And also you get some free bonuses along with it as well. So if you're looking to transform out of addictive patterns and get some change and, have things to be different and joyful and have some freedom in your life, I'd highly recommend taking a look at this book. It could be the most important thing you read in 2021 and 2022 moving forward. Into the video, guys. Peace.
I guess at that time as well, and it's something that now that we're it still gets brought up quite a bit, but we're out of that real intense phase of like the media reporting on ice as like this epidemic, like this kind of crazy thing. You'd almost think that was like back in 2015, 16, maybe earlier, something like that. You'd almost think it was kind of like how COVID-19's talked about in the news now. That was like what ice was like. It was just like plastered all over the TV and stuff like that. So, and I guess how people don't get me wrong, the harm, as you said, the harms had obviously gone up, but it wasn't as bad as everybody thought, and people just weren't kind of walking around addicted. What was the disconnect there, and what was the big thing that people were missing? It was around that people use ice, but they don't just necessarily get addicted straight away.
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a whole load of myths that were generated because you only see your part of the world that you see. You can only see if you're standing in a direction, you only see in front of you can't see behind you or to the side. So people making assumptions just looking ahead rather than looking 360. So it meant that I think that some well-intended people in the community and governments made some decisions that weren't really based on reality and what the data showed. 80% of people who use methamphetamine just use it occasionally, and most of those use it just once or twice a year. And that kind of gets missed when you're in the emergency department or you're in the drug and alcohol service or you're in the community and you can see it's very visible. You miss the bigger picture. So I think that's why it's really important for our responses to be informed by the evidence and by the data.
Just a quick interruption to let you guys know that we've created a complete new book called The 11 Definitive Steps to Get Recovery Without Going to Rehab. And for a short time only, we've got a super special deal on it where you can get the book for a heavily discounted price, plus some free bonuses, the book audio recorded, and a free self-care planner that I've used to help me start my day and finish my day in a really nice and freeing fashion. So if that's of interest to you and you're looking for some answers on how to get some transformation out of addiction without having to lock yourself away in rehab for ages, maybe you might want to check out the book. Search for it in the description below. Back to the video. Peace.
Because what was actually happening, and full disclosure, I was one of those people, so I was stuck in the bubble. I hadn't had extra kind of education. I wasn't talking to other people with different points of view at the time. I was working in a rehab. So all we were seeing was like the kind of 1% of people that are severely addicted and dependent. And I just thought that, coupled with the news, doing a lot of media myself, I just thought everybody was addicted to ice. And once I kind of snapped out of that and looked kind of over the hill, it was really interesting because there was a flow-on effect that actually happened where there was a larger group of people that weren't at the pointy end that were at severe risk of kind of falling into that category, but weren't getting any help because they were feeling stigmatized, or they didn't feel comfortable to, reach out because they didn't want to be labeled as like like an ice junkie or whatever. And that was a really interesting shift for me to have.
Yeah, and I think that there was a whole load of implications from that. I think that's really important, that where we actually might have had a bigger impact was that group in the middle who were using quite regularly and at risk of becoming dependent on it or having other problems, but so much stigma around it that they were like not having a bar of going into treatment. And also it meant that our policy decisions were not around harm reduction, they were around policing, because if we need to reduce use, then we need to reduce supply. And so all of the focus was on reducing supply rather than actually reducing harms.
Yeah.
So I think that it really demonstrates how important it is to look at the whole picture and make decisions based on the whole picture and not just what appears to be the case.
Yeah. So tell me, right, so when we say the data, because it's something that I've noticed, and I agree that we have to be more evidence-based because we're not. But the other thing that I've noticed is kind of observing these circles is that, from my point of view anyway, like the evidence is also limiting, like in terms of how we collect it. And so how is, these prevalent measures and whether a service is effective? I know they're two different things, so sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit, but all these different things, how is that actually calculated? And just like talk the listeners through the process on how that's actually determined, because I think a lot of people don't understand that, because I definitely didn't.
So at a kind of population level, or at a kind of bigger government level, we collect a whole load of data sets. So every 4 years there's the National Drug Household Survey. And that's a random survey. It's about 25 to 30,000 people that are surveyed, and it's extrapolated to the general population. So there's all of the data has holes. There's no perfect data set. So that for example, doesn't capture people in mental health facilities or homeless, or so it's not capturing a larger proportion of people who are at risk. So the data is probably a slight underestimate in that case, but it'll be a slight underestimate every year that it's done, so we can look at trends at least. And then there's a whole range of other data sets collected. There's some what's called sentinel groups of drug users, people who use drugs, that are surveyed over and over again every year through the illicit drug reporting system and the ecstasy and related drug reporting system. And then there's the wastewater data as well. And then there's the treatment data. So the treatment data is how many people have come into treatment, what have they come in for, and what were their outcomes, like whether they left unexpectedly or whether they completed treatment or that kind of thing.
Do they look at like ambulance data as well?
Ambulance and hospital data is also part of the mix as well.
So, and then is the process, and this is on like a wider population scale, the analysts, experts, how do they do it? Do they like amalgamate it together or look for trends that appear across all of it? Or
well, that would be the ideal. But the way that research works is that people become specialised in their particular area.
Right.
And so they tend to just focus on one or two of the data sets and utilise that. But in an ideal world, we would put all of those data sets together and have a look at the pattern between them and come up with a better solution.
Hope you enjoyed that video, and thanks for supporting the Real Drug Talk YouTube channel. Every video you watch, comment, subscribe to helps us to push through the YouTube algorithms and hopefully reach more people and help them out. Now listen, we're living in the most crazy times for the past 100 years, and because of that, as I mentioned throughout this video, we've created a brand new ebook that we have a special deal on called the 11 Definitive Steps to Transforming Out of Addictive Patterns Without Having to Go to Rehab. So if that sounds of interest to you, check out the links below. You can click on it and claim the super special deal that we have on it at the moment. Again, hope you and your family are doing okay, and would love for you to check out the rest of the videos on our channels and share them with anyone else that you think it might help. See you in the next video. Peace.